Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know if it's deserved when I can't spell my own name. I'm looking at it and I've checked this thing multiple times, but I don't check this page. Obviously, I need to. Okay. I have a lot of fun with these because I love the hummingbirds. I think they are just the coolest creature on God's earth. And for that reason, I want to have fun with this today. What I want to do is give a little bit of history, just a tiny bit of history and a frame of reference for the hummingbird in this whole big world of ours. Then we want to talk about the characteristics of a hummingbird, which are amazing. Then I want to talk about 3 special traits that they have and how these 3 traits you can use in your yard to attract them. When I put this together in my head, it was like, I can do that. And so we'll, as we go on, and then we're going to talk about just some basic fundamental things that you need to keep in mind if you do have a feeder in your yard. Okay? So I'm fine with you interrupting me. If I go off on a rabbit trail with you, we'll just have a good time and we'll eventually get back. All right, let's see here. We're going to be talking about the ruby-throated hummingbird. And you may want to know why just that bird. Well, there's a reason for it. Where we live here in the eastern United States, the ruby-throated hummingbird is the only hummingbird that you're going to primarily see from Canada to Florida, all the way to Texas. Texas, over the far western eastern states, eastern United States, they do get more of a mixture. But here where we are, this is what you're going to primarily see is that beautiful little red ruby-throated hummingbird. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And to get you in context, back in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And you know what he found? He found the first hummingbirds that the Europeans had ever seen. The hummingbirds live in the Americas, from Canada all the way down to the tip of Chile, exclusively. When the explorers started coming, they had never seen the little hummingbird, this little bird that just darted around. And if you've ever sat outside with a bright colored shirt, I'm looking at that orange back there, or the flowery pink, today I'd probably do it. If you sit for long enough near a bird feeder, they'll come and they'll look at you in the face and decide if you're good or not, tasty, and then fly off. So can you imagine what the first explorers, Columbus was the one who wrote back in his travel journal, little birds so different from ours, it is a marvel. And that is in his travel journal from 1492. Now, speed up a little bit to the settlers going to Jamestown and the colonies along the eastern coast there. They're bringing people, once again, they're coming over from Europe and they're settling. And they're getting to see these birds as they're creating their home space. They're seeing this new little bird flying around. And what about one of the, I think it was John Smith. He did a lot of journaling and he was kind of a historian for some of the settlers. And he, think about this. He goes visiting and he's talking to the Indians, the natives in there, and he meets with the chief who has 2 hummingbirds hanging from his ears. The earrings are hummingbirds for this chieftain of the tribe because it was such a valuable ornament for them, a valuable species. They valued it also alive and well because it carried all kinds of mystical stories around it. There's a whole history in that area that you can look up if you would like, if you're interested in that. But I wanted to make the point that the hummingbirds were not in Europe, not in England. They're not over that way, only in the Americas. And they go all the way from Canada down to the very tip. And believe it or not, the Andes mountains are one of their favorite spots. It has the most species. There are over 349 recorded right now, and they keep finding additional different species, but have been identified. In the North America, there's only around 20, and in the eastern part, it's basically the ruby-throated. The ruby-throated is the only one believed to be breeding in eastern U.S., on the eastern coast, really almost the eastern half of the United States. There are a couple of others you'll hear that have meandered through, but they usually bred somewhere else and they're flying through. And now with our crazy weather, they are finding that some are being blown off course and are beginning to establish new areas. But the West Coast is where there are, around, 17, 18, anyway, because there's such a wide range of conditions, year-round, different conditions in year-round, all the way up there, even some that winter in Canada. So, but if you have the opportunity, the privilege to go to Ecuador, Peru, these two countries, or Colombia, these three countries are noted for having the most variety, the most number of species. We were able to go to Ecuador, and we were staying in the fog, in the cloud forest, in a lodge up there. And every morning we would go out to the Hummingbird because someone's duty was to put fresh water in those early in the morning before the hummingbirds started flying, and we'll talk about torpor in a few minutes. But they would fill up all of the hummingbird feeders, and you would, I mean, I wish I'd put a picture in there, but just, 10 or 15 hummingbird feeders, and just a great variety of color flying around all of these all these feeders. It's amazing. So that's why we're looking only at the ruby-throated. The breeding area is in red there. You'll see they breed all up in the northern part of the United States, coming all the way down. They start migrating pretty down to the Central America is primarily where our ruby-throated ones go. And they're coming down across the Gulf here, flying across the Gulf in one trip, obviously. So, what's not to love about this little bird? So, that's just to give you an idea of the range of the ruby-throated hummingbird. That one bird does this year after year. All right, now, let's talk about the actual bird. It's this little tiny thing, 3 to 5 inches from bill to tail, from the tip of its little bill all the way to the tail. I mean, this little bitty tiny thing. And it weighs approximately 3.5 grams, somewhere in that neighborhood. It takes 160 of them to make 1 pound. 160 hummingbirds to make 1 pound. I just want you to begin to wrap your head around the miracle of this little bird. And yet, in that little bitty body, it has this huge heart. Because it has a huge heart. Well, they are cantankerous, but they do have a huge heart. And relative to the size, it's one of the largest hearts proportionally of any of the animals in our kingdom. It is approximately 2.5% of that 3 grams. 2.5% of it is the heart. Ooh. Okay, now, that little heart had to be big because look what it's doing. It's beating 200 to 600 beats per minute. All right, what's your heart rate? You've been to the doctor recently, you probably found out it's in the 70s, we hope. Maybe 80s, maybe 90s, but hopefully nothing below that. 200 to 600 normally for a hummingbird. And it gets up to 1,600 beats. 1,200 beats per minute. Guess when that might be? I mean, there are many times, but I'll give you one good example. When he's mating the male, he's doing those dives down to the female, that heart rate is going sky high. When they're chasing others off from the feeders, you know, you've seen them fighting. How many of you have active hummingbird feeders right now? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, how they fight constantly. Cantankerous little critters. So their heartbeat is just on a dime, it changes and has that capacity because of the proportionally to the size, it is a large muscle in their body. Their wings, all right. I love demonstrating this because I can't do it. Birds, most birds fly with the power in the downward stroke. They're flying, and when they go down, that's when they have the thrust forward. So the hummingbird has these huge pectoral muscles that allow that and that allow those wings to have power going down and going up. So their wings are literally going in a figure eight. I cannot do the figure eight. I can do this. And so, but they are making, each wing is making a figure eight, and the power is in the upward and the downward stroke, which allows for that great maneuverability. Up, down, sideways, backwards, hovering, all of the antics. Have you ever seen one fly upside down? I've actually have a picture somewhere of one flying upside down. But the wings are not only are they doing these incredible things, 70 to 80 wing beats per second, and they can go up to 200 wing beats per second. And once again, when they do those spurts of action, that's when the wing beats flop, head up, and the heartbeat rises. Now, the brain is also an amazing thing because, you know, you've heard the old expression, well, he's just a bird brain. If I'm a bird brain, I want to be a hummingbird bird brain because their brain, once again, is large for the small body. It's actually only the size of a little BB, but for their body, it's 4.2% of the body weight. Once again, back to that 3 grams, 4.2%, amazing. And we talked about the pectoral muscles. So you're beginning to get the picture of, in this little bitty package of color, you've got all of these miraculous things going on. Speed. The wings are going 80 times per second, up to 200. They can go 35 miles per hour. That's just cruising through your yard. All right? But they can dive at 50 miles an hour. That's when the male's going after the female. One example. There are other examples, obviously. They're diving all the time. But that speed will go up to 50 miles per hour. We can't even drive that fast through our neighborhoods. We shouldn't. We shouldn't. And we talked a little bit about that maneuverability. And I want to talk about their superpower, which is that ability to hover. Only bird that can do that. You may see an eagle slow down and he's gliding. It's not hovering, he's just gliding before he goes down to catch, or some of the other water birds will do that. But the hummingbird has the true ability to hover, where they can stay motionless in front of a flower. And the reason they do that, it has evolved over the years so that they can get into the flowers. And there's a lot of information out there about the symbiotic relationship between the bill and the flowers, and how the flowers need the hummingbirds to come and to pollinate them. And it's a very close relationship all through the Americas. And through the eons, this has developed. And that ability to hover and to get the pollen, get the nectar, and then to move from flower to flower is essential in our ecosystem. They have an extremely high metabolism, as you can imagine, because 100% of the nectar, the sugar that they take in, 100% of it goes directly to creating energy to, I'm not sure the word I want there, but translates into energy for the bird. Now, let's talk about torpor. I think that is an amazing feature also. Can you imagine their body temperature is around 104, 110, goes in that neighborhood during the day, they're flying around your yard having a good time. Sun starts going down and they start, their body temperature, they're feeding every 10 to 15 minutes, so they've gotten a good supply in their body, and they start going down for the night, and their body temperature will drop in the 60s, maybe lower, depending on the part of the country they're in, but it will drop very low. And I read just recently that, and I think this is very interesting, it's probably just one person that has said this, but he said that at 86 degrees, the bird will start waking up and start to move. Now, that's pretty specific. I'm not sure about that. But the point is, they go into this state of torpor. Remember, they have to have continual food. They're eating every 10 to 15 minutes. They've got to have protein. They've got to have sugar water or nectar, something sweet in their bodies. So they've got to have that. So they pumped up for the night. They get on a perch, wherever the perch may be, and guess what holds them in place? These 3 claws with the back claw, and they grab onto a limb, and these don't change. Their body goes into torpor, total relaxation for the night. It's not expending energy, it needs to conserve. But these 2 claws are not for walking, they're for perching, they're for grabbing onto their perch, and they're rigid, and they're what hold them onto the limb, wherever they happen to be for the night. Usually a perch of some sort, limbs usually. And so those remain rigid and hold them on the perch overnight. In fact, some people think, well, I've seen them and they look like they were dead. They weren't moving. And they don't. They're totally relaxed or in a state of hibernation, except for those claws that maintain that position for them.
Are they alert while you sleep?
Inert?
Are they alert?
Alert. They are in a state of torpor. No, they cannot. In fact, it takes them approximately about an hour, and that certainly will depend on parts of the country. But they do not just immediately, okay, it's morning, the sun's out, I'm awake. It takes them a while to become mobile. Their body has to start, it's like all the parts, I don't know, I'm that way. I need to get everything all moving before I'm really ready to be real active. Same with these birds. They need to wake up, and it can take an hour, it could take longer. I would estimate if it's colder. But it takes them a while to get, and then they're alert and they're ready to go because they're hungry. They got to go have that food. All right. Let's talk quickly for a minute about how you identify them. And I just wanted to show you this, but I want you to go home and pull up pictures and look at them, because these were some of the best ones I could find that were close up that would show you some of the differences. The male, of course, has the gorget, the red gorget. You don't see that often unless the sun hits it in the right direction. And then you'll see that beautiful red. It may appear to be dark, it may even appear to be black. It's the gorget that the sun just hasn't hit it in the right direction. But on the male, you'll notice that there's the white area right there, and then it's darker on down here. The female is basically lighter with these striations in her all the way down. So this is a big area to look at when you're trying to identify that chest. And the confusing part are these little juveniles. And they are little sneaky little characters because when they're small, this is whiter, so you may think, well, that's a female. But if you look, this is where the gorget is developing up here. And one of the pictures that was playing earlier, there were like 2 red spots. And that's because these feathers develop at different times, or as they're developing. And they need to have that full development to get the red color. So oftentimes the juveniles will think, well, there's only 3 or 4 spots on it. That's fine, it's a juvenile, he's growing. He hasn't got his whole gorget fleshed out yet. So, and the female also has the white tail. So the female has the white tail and the male has that. And there is a little difference in the male and female's tail. The male has the pointed like that, and the female has hers, they're a little more feathered-like on hers. A little difference there. So that, I have looked and watched them, and you know you only get a split second and they're gone. So pick your battles about what, kind of look for, but to help you on identifying some of those. And when those babies start flying around, that makes it even more difficult. All right. I talked about 3 really special characteristics that will help you develop a yard that the hummers want to come to every year. Memory. They have an enormous memory for where to go and how to get there and how to get home. Babies have never, they're born here in the eastern United States. They have not made the migration across down to the Central America, but they know. They just know. It's part of their genetic implanting. I'm not a geneticist, so I'm not sure about the terminology on that, but it is not programmed in, it is programmed in them to know when to go and how to get down there and how to get their body ready and to get them down there. But that also means once they get down there, they know where to come back to the next year. And it is amazing. I worked in my yard. About 15 years ago, I put out my first really feeder that I was taking care of, really taking care of. And so the next year, I was doing something in the yard underneath it in the spring, and a hummer was buzzing around my head. And I thought, oh, that's where I had the feeder. He wanted me to put that feeder back. And it was a male because the males come first. And he wanted that feeder back up, so I trotted inside and I put my feeder up for the first time that year and started getting some of the migrators going through. The migrators may not stay with you. Right now they've been coming through, but they will come by your house every year because they know you got flowers for them. And we'll talk more about stuff like that too. So they remember where their food sources are. In the migration process, they know where they found food last year, where they found an abundance of food, where maybe there wasn't so much and they kind of take that off the root or whatever. But their memory is tremendous. And that plays into your favor because once you get them coming, they're going to come back if you're giving them stuff they like, okay? The next strength is their visual strength. They can see, as many birds, they have amazing visual acuity. And not only does this help them in flight, just think they're fighting at a hummingbird. How do they keep from going into each other? One theory is that it's the visual strength that they have and the way their eyes are situated and the ability of the eyes enables them to be able to see and to avoid running into objects and people and the other birds. But they also see colors on the spectrum, on the ultraviolet spectrum. Red, of course, is their favorite color. I put this picture here because this is my island that I pull them into each year. I try to. And this is later in the summer. Things are beginning to bloom more and different kinds of things. But in the spring, I make sure I put in red here, along with my bird feeder, the hummingbird feeder. And some of the red, they're the annual cardinals, they like that, plus it's a vivid red, and it'll pull them in, they can see it. And then I'm not even sure what all I've got down there, I think that's a salvia right there. But I put in colors that will pull them in. And this is what I have in bloom right now, some of them, not all of them, just a few of them right there. I brought a little sample, but you can't go wrong with salvias. Salvias will save you every time. Salvias and things. But anyway, this visual strength. So think of your yard as from a bird's eye view. He's flying over. And that's what I'm trying to do, is catch his attention with red, because he's going to see the red. So you put the feeder up, it's got the red, and you put something red out there. I've got other perennials that are coming up. Columbine is one of their favorite. See the bright red on this, and pull them in. They see that. Plus they remember it was there last year. So they're going to use this strength of theirs to become a strength for you in pulling them into your yard. So I visualize it every winter when I'm thinking about, okay, they're going to be flying over. I know they're going to be checking me out because they've been here before. Okay, what can I put in there to really pull them in fast and keep them in? Sometimes I'm successful. It looks different every year. So this is a couple years old. Okay, taste. This is the last one of the three. Memory, vision, and taste. These three characteristics, keep them in mind. Now, you got them coming. They see you. They see your yard. They've been there before. What are you going to give them? Well, once again, an evolutionary process, eons in the making and eons ago, the savory glands in the hummingbird evolved so that they have more of the sweet receptors. They do have a little bit of savory left, but their receptors are primarily for sweet. So they got a sugar tooth that won't stop, and so they're looking for the sugar. Where can we find sugar? Their receptors are high alert all the time. They have very little smell. You can have the most wonderful smelling red flowers. All they're going to see is the red. They don't care about the smell. And they're looking for flowers with very high content of sugar. 12% is considered the best. I'm sure there's maybe some that are higher than that. But if you start to find or look for a flower by sugar content, please send me a copy of the list. I looked. You know, they say, well, they need flowers that have at least 12% sugar in the nectar of the flower. But they will not. They'll make long lists of flowers, but they won't rank them as far as the sugar content. So I'm not sure how that has been figured out, but you will see that mentioned often, that the hummingbirds need 12% at least of a sugar content in the flower that becomes their favorite. So you got three things to think about there. You got memory, they're going to be coming back. If you can get them once, you can get them again. Vision. Thank you. Vision. How do you attract them? You want to attract those newbies that are flying through also. And then memory and taste. You have flowers that they really like when they get there. Okay? This is one that they really do enjoy, that one, and they get all the way up inside of that angel trumpet.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I thought the angel trunk was poisonous.
Not for the hummingbird.
Okay.
No, ma'am. Oleander is poisonous for hummingbirds,
She thought it was
but not this one. Okay, when do you put your feeders out? Well, I put mine out in late March this year. Some people say they watch for the red buckeye tree, and when it starts opening up the blooms, because it really does attract hummers, know to put out your hummingbird feeders there. I have red buckeyes, and they're about like that. And I have a combination of 6 blooms this year, so I don't think that did it. But it's growing. I'm thinking of the future. I'm going to have a big red buckeye in the spring that hummingbirds adore. So look at this. And I put on here because I can't tell you exactly, but there are all kinds of migration and sighting maps just for Tennessee. Just Google it. You will find it, and you will start seeing chats about, oh, up in East Tennessee, I saw my first hummingbird at such and such date, and they're coming your way, or I saw it, in, whatever. But there are migration and sightings maps that are current for the year, like next spring, early in the spring, you can start tracking. All right, now we're going to talk about these feeders. To start this, I need to say something here, because I really do have some strong feelings about this. John Shuey is a hummingbird expert. He's written many books and articles, and he has this phrase that I like. He says that if you put up a hummingbird feeder, you have an ethical responsibility to ensure that your feeder does no damage to the hummingbirds. And this is huge. If I sometimes probably make my neighbors mad, but I sometimes tell them it's time to change the water out of their hummingbird feeders. When it's real milky and you can see the black mold. So, with that said, to be the responsible owner of a hummingbird feeder requires time and effort on your part so that you do not create harm for the hummingbirds. So with that said, I'll go on to better things. On a used table sugar, you do not need to use organic sugar, raw sugar, molasses, sweeteners, no, none of that. Buy the cheap sugar from Aldi's, wherever, and that's all you need to use, and it's a 4-to-1 ratio, whatever you use. I have a container, and I put in 3/4 sugar and the rest of it up to 4 cups water. Y'all can do the math. But I figured it out. It is correct. That's a 4-to-1 ratio. And I put it in the microwave for 2 minutes max and stir it up. It's all dissolved. And I put it in a jar and I put it in the refrigerator. And that way I always have some on hand ready for when I'm watching them. I have 2 feeders out, one in the front and one in the back. And when, they empty at different times, different rates, depending on who's coming through, and the one in the front tends to get more because I think it gets the pass-through traffic more. But on your feeders, I brought this one because I'm going to tell you what I hate about it. I don't use it anymore. I did use it a lot. Mm-hmm. They make them now with the big spout, the big one. Don't buy that little thing. They're a pain to clean. And that's one of the reasons people oftentimes are not able to keep them clean. They take so much pain. The ones now have the bigger openings, and they're much easier to clean, and invest in a brush that you can get down in there, do it real fast. But if you do it, I found out, it took me several years to figure this one out. If you do it, the more often you do it, the less you have to clean. So that's a good lesson. These little yellow things, Do you have trouble keeping the bees off of your They love these, the bees love these. Pop them off. Just get them off of there. Because they're of no use, the hummingbird will find its way. And all this does is attract the bees. And some of the newer ones will not have, they'll have a little flower there, but it won't be painted yellow, which is much nicer. Somebody told me that, and I said, you're crazy. Well, they're not. It works. The yellow just doesn't appeal to the bumblebees, the yellow jackets, all of those that will come in. So take this, pop them off your feeders. Hummingbirds don't need it. This one, waste of time for me. Because no matter how I hung it, I couldn't get it level. It always would go one side or the other. And putting it in there and carrying it outside, I set water stuff all over me. Plus it has those on it. This one it's broken down. I've got to replace it. It had the stoppers that I could attach to the window, and I put it right above my couch where I sat a lot. And once they found it, they came, and they would empty this little thing out in no time. And this is the water trough for the ants, to keep the ants off of it. And they love it. If you have a spot and you want to invest in this one, it's a wonderful way to watch them up close.
Where did you buy that?
It is on Amazon. I think I got it. I should have residue, whatever coming from Amazon.
And do they get confused with the window? I mean,
I did not have that trouble with her. Now, I'm not going to say that might not be an issue. It could be because it was in the shade under my porch. So the light was different. They could see the light from inside. I don't know, but I did not have that problem. And it was just a lot of fun to have this close by and to be able to look up and one be just snipping in. And oftentimes, one found it first, and it was like his little secret hiding spot where he had found a secret source of sugar, and then others found it also. I also got that Wild Birds Unlimited. That may actually be where I got that one.
What about the ones that are more hourglass shaped? They're smaller than that big one, and they have the flower with the bee guard in it.
Like those ornamental ones that are
But it's
blown
not
glass
ornamental.
or-
It's like perky bird or something. I can't think what it's
Uh-huh.
called. But they're hourglass.
Like a balloon, like a
Pardon?
hot air balloon in a way, upside down.
No.
It's an
They're
hourglass.
hourglass shaped. I mean, they're not straight.
Mhm.
They're more like this. They're glass.
Right.
And they've got a wide top, so you can get a brush in them.
Uh-huh.
And then they have around the bottom like that big one, except it's a flower on a stem. You put the flower on, then you stick the yellow bee guard in it, which gets eaten by the bees, right? You don't use those?
I don't, but in my early times, I thought, I'm gonna have this cute little hummingbird feeder that looks so cute hanging on my porch. It never got anything.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that was 15 years ago, and it could be that I was just a very poor keeper of the feeder. I
Well,
don't
these
know.
are not, I mean, you can buy these at Ace Hardware or Wild Birds Unlimited. I mean, they're in the standard type.
And some people may have had good luck with them. I just personally haven't.
Right.
Somebody else may find it very useful.
Right.
So what are you using besides the window? Thank you.
Well, I was going to bring you one to show you today, but they were full of water. And I didn't want to miss a hummingbird. I thought I had an extra one, but I didn't. I have resorted to, and I bought two for like $15. They came two in a pack. They're smaller. They're probably only about this high. They're not this big around. This is plastic, plexiglass around here. and it has a smaller bottom, and they are very, very easy to clean. It has a big opening there. They're very easy. The top and bottom come apart, so I can scrub them very quickly and very fast. And because they're not super big, I can put in smaller amount of water and change it when when it gets cloudy and you've got this much left. You're thinking, let's just leave it one more day. No. So I put in smaller amounts, and these are a little bit smaller, and they are plastic, and you can find them.
So what you're using is plexiglass, what I use is glass.
I don't think there's any difference. Mine seem to bring, of course, we know glass works. Yeah. So, and the newer ones that I just ordered last year came with the flower imprint, but it was not yellow. It was just red all the way around. Good. So, let's go on here. Okay, so you're providing sugar water for them. They have to have protein. About 75% of their diet actually comes from protein. So they're looking for little spiders, mites, your plants, all those little bugs, mosquitoes, all those little flying gnats and all. This is what they are loving, and they're eating it. And I showed some of you earlier. If you can see, there's a little bitty white aphid right there, and he's just getting ready to take it in. And I love it. But, and that one is a juvenile, just developing his organ, male. Protein, they're going to find the protein. You don't have to do anything for it. If you got flowers, you got bugs. So, they're happy. But that's just a point there that we always talk about the sugar water, but protein is very valuable, providing 70% of their diet. Water sources. This was a sprinkler that I had on, and this one was playing in the sprinkler and literally got on his back to wash his wings. You've seen them in your water fountain, like robins and other things. He was doing the same thing. He was having a good bath. His good summer bath had been very dry. So water you can provide. One summer I put a mister in a tree, like a neighbor fashioned a little mister that I connected to a hose pipe, and in the tree, it was the tree that they perch in a lot while they're waiting to go to the feeder or in between feedings. So I put a mister in there, and they seemed to like it somewhat. I didn't see great activity in it, so I didn't repeat that. But misters, sprinklers, if you have a sprinkling system that's regular, you may see them going to it, especially if it's hitting trees. They need something to perch on. So water is important. Water fountains, bird baths. My thought on that, and this is just me, is I can't keep that water in there and I can't keep it clean. So I don't deal with that. I'd rather come up with another way of just putting a sprinkler out under a tree for them periodically. There he is. Okay, and they also need perching places. This is a wire I strung between two poles on the back porch, and it was near the feeder. And they would sit here and guard the feeder and then take off when they saw somebody come into the feeder. So this is one way. I also plant hyacinth bean. If you know anything about the hyacinth bean vine, it just grows and spirals all around. They love to get in there and perch on the vine, so they do well there. Okay. So you've got perching places, water, food sources, your feeders. Now, let's talk about flowers. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on flowers, because you can just Google list and you'll get list after list after list. I did put a small list on the back of the paper there. But I want you to think about One, the shape of the blossoms, they like the downward facing, and they like tubular, and this, one of the reasons like for the tubular is that, and the smaller the tube, the better, because they're not competing. This is my new favorite flower, and you may know it. It's called the copia, Caphea.
Can you spell that?
Cuphea. I can spell it, I can't say it well. Some say it Caphea. But, or the cigar plant, or firecracker, you may have heard of that one. It is becoming quite popular again. And the hummers, I've seen these in my front yard just swarming around this because it's a perfect example of a small tube that their beak can go right into. It's got the orange color that attracts them, and they can just go flower to flower very quickly because the plants, if you see a well-developed one, are just totally coated with these blossoms.
Is it a shrub or a plant?
It is, it'll get about this big around, about like this.
Okay.
It's not huge. If you take care of it, you might get it back next year, but it's really considered an annual. This one is another one.
What is the name of that first one
This,
yeah.
Cuphea. And this one is a shrimp plant, and they like these. They come in there and they like those.
Either one of those perennials.
No. Yeah, I know. See, I found that I have to augment my perennials with annuals to keep something going all the time. And that's something I want us to talk about is 3 seasons, real quickly. Spring, what have you got in your yard to attract them as they're migrating through? You want them to stay a day or two and get nice and full. This one is, the columbine is one of their favorites. I have columbine, bleeding heart. Sometimes I'll put a fuchsia. If you're into baskets, hanging baskets, the fuchsia hanging baskets are gorgeous, and they love that cool spring weather. If you want to hang a basket up. That is showing the butterfly bush, and I need to revise that because I don't like that one. It needs to go away. Summertime, there are so many. This is the hyacinth thing that comes back. It reseeds itself. I'm finding little sprouts all over the yard from my vines. This one, I love this. This is at the UT Extension in Knoxville, the gardens there. And this is just covered with these blossoms. And it blooms all summer to frost.
What's it called?
Hyacinth bean.
It's on the list.
Vine. Corabelles start blooming in the spring. They love that spring, and then they go on into summer. The croscosmia, they love that. It has a, once again, it's a perennial, comes back year after year, multiplies, and they will sit on those stems. They're hardy enough for them to perch on, and they just will dip in and out of those flowers. And they have a good time on the croscosmia. Croscosmia, easy to grow, loves the heat, loves the sun. Put it in, and it'll come back every year, whether you want it to or not. Then, what do you got for the fall? Salvias, you can't go wrong. This is I think this is a pineapple sage right here. This is black and blue. That one is another salvia up there. But the salvia is a standard. I have 3 or 4 salvias that will be just like this by the time, and they go all the way to frost, and they still have blossoms. So you'll catch them as they're migrating back through to go on to the Central America. All right. Can't go wrong. And I don't want to forget, if you don't have a yard, you don't want to have a yard, You can have the hanging baskets or the potted plants. That Cupia does very well in a pot and grows very well. Put that out somewhere to get lots of sun. All right. I have talked lots more than I meant to talk. I wanted you guys to talk some, but I still have lots of stuff to say, but I will stop and take questions.
When you've got your feeder, how do you clean it? What, do you use this water, or do you put vinegar in there, or do you put lemon juice? What do you do?
No lemon juice. Vinegar only if you use a very, very small amount, you know, ratio. Very, very. I use, and you can use just a tad of, like, liquid detergent, just a pinpoint. You don't want much of anything, and if you're doing them very regularly, you might not have to use anything. You can just give them a good brush, hot water, and clean them up.
Okay, thank you.
But make sure you get all the residue off.
How often do you change your water?
I'm changing mine, I'm moving into the season, well, actually I've changed it almost every day for the last month, 6 weeks, because they were migrating through. I'm slowing down a little bit now because they've slowed down. And the reason being, the males come about 10 days before the females. They leave down in the Americas, Central America, they leave there about 10 days before the females to look and stake out a place. And so they're coming through first, and then the females are coming through to find their breeding ground, find the best spot, and oftentimes they'll come back to the same nest. So I'm hoping right now I've got some females that are breeding. The laying of the egg to the fledgling, it's about 40 days, and then you start seeing the activity pick up. Because once those little males leave, or little babies, males and females leave the nest, they're on their own. Sink or swim. By the way, there's a wonderful phrase about the males in the springtime when they're coming through. They're hot-tempered with raging hormones.
How long do they live, for one, and I have something to say about it.
How long do they live? They live, some have been banded and documented to be 10 to 12 years. That is unusual, but the banding does occur. And by the way, IMS does a banding every year out at the IMS Nature Center. If you haven't been to a banding, go.
7 Islands does it as well.
7 Islands, okay. So that banding is awesome to watch.
One of your very early slides had dates like March 1st to whatever, when they start, or when you put out the feeders. Because I put out my feeders early March and just watch, even when it's still cold.
Yes.
So can you go back to that slide? Or
Yeah. And see, it's between late March, we're in the area between late March and early April. So if you want to be sure, put it out early. You're not harming anything.
Have you ever helped with a hummingbird?
Yes,
I had to rescue hummingbirds.
I have too.
I had spider webs
Well,
and screen wire.
yes. I had, we have in the garage doors, and the garage opener has that little red thing that hangs down. It has blue tape on it now. But a hummingbird had flown in, that had attracted them in. And I was trying, and their natural instinct is to fly up. So you come after him, he flies up. So I put a feeder, took it off and put it outside the garage. And you could tell he just kept flying. I had a broom. I was trying to direct him downward. I ended up, long story short, I ended up climbing on top of my husband's truck. He was perched on the railing of the garage. I was able to literally just do this. And once, by the way, once you touch them, they go into just a state of total relaxation. It's protective, I'm sure, but they don't flutter and fight in your hand. and I was able to get him down and let him out, and he went very quickly to the feeder that I had, because I'm sure this process had exhausted his resources. I hope he lived after that. Okay, more questions?
How do they feed when they're making that long journey across the country?
They don't.
They don't.
They pump up. Their body weight will become at least double. Let's say they were 2 ounces or 3 ounces, it could go up to 6 ounces and even more than that. They get fat. They really just get fat, and they fly the distance. And of course, that's the miracle. They're programmed, their genetic makeup. They know they have to pump up, and they fly 10 to 18 hours, depending on where they're coming from and where they're going, nonstop. Yes.
You said you put your feeders out in late March. When do you take them?
I leave mine till there's no hope of another one coming to bed. And I don't see that, the leaving time on there, but there are maps of when they go back through. I find that I have more birds in August and September. The babies have grown up and they're making it on their own. By the way, they're kicked out of the nest, and mama has nothing to do with them once they're gone. Mom and dads do not mate. Dad's a one-time man, here and gone. You know? It's about 3 seconds if you want to know details. Really. But he took that 50-mile-an-hour dive. So he felt like it. Yes.
Do you have any statistics or even personal feeling on what the hummingbird population is like this year? Because we're just not seeing birds.
I heard that last year also. I think they're decreasing, but I don't have any stats on that.
I just wondered if it was
No, I'm seeing it, and I'm hearing that. I will tell you this, they do trap lining. They will, our neighborhood, I've gotten 2 or 3 other folks putting out nice little gardens for them with the right kind of plants and putting out their feeders and everything. And there's they do trap lining, sort of like fishermen or hunters that go and put out different traps and check them. And they'll go around and check their favorite spots that they've staked out. In other words, they have a territory that they establish. So I like to think that I'm sharing the hummingbirds with all of my neighbors, and that they're going around and may not hit mine as much as I want, but they're going around and doing others, because my neighbors were talking about seeing them also. So that's one of their strategies. Another, of course, is just to stake out one feeder all the time. What else? Anything? Yes.
I think it's interesting what he just said, because I've had some for a few years. The last 2 years, I don't have any. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I've got the pretty flowers. I'm trying to give them fresh feed. I don't understand where they went.
I don't either. And that's my next topic to start looking into. I've read some stuff about diminishing population. They're natural predators. I'm going to tell you this, the #1 killer of hummingbirds.
Okay.
I tell you, I got them in my yard,
One.
killing all the birds.
The #1 killer. Other than that, they basically don't have any enemies. Every once in a while, a praying mantis may be large and can get them, but cats.
And we are so happy that you all came today, and we really appreciate Marion for giving this